The day that changed everything began like any other on the Galactic Council ship Starwatch. Captain Theris of the Vorthai was conducting a routine patrol along the border of Council space when her sensors detected something impossible. A massive ship was approaching from the outer rim, moving faster than any known technology should allow. "Unknown vessel, you are entering Galactic Council territory without permission," Theris broadcast on all communication channels. "Identify yourself immediately, or we will open fire." The response came in perfect Council standard, but the voice belonged to a species that should not exist in civilized space. "This is Commander Tony Mitchell of the Alliance ship Horizon's Edge. We request permission to speak with Council representatives about matters of galactic importance." Theris felt her crystalline body grow cold with shock. Mitchell was a human. Name. But humans had been exiled from the galaxy over a century ago. They should all be dead or scattered across the outer rim by now. Impossible, Theris whispered to her bridge crew. "Run a full sensor scan on that vessel." The results of the scan made no sense at all. The ship approaching them was larger than any Council dreadnought, but it used technologies that Council scientists had never seen before. The hull was made from materials that seemed to bend light around them, and the engine signature suggested power systems beyond Council understanding. "Captain, the ship is slowing down," reported the Vorthai sensor officer. "They appear to be waiting for a response to their request." Theris had no choice but to contact Council headquarters on Nexus Prime. Within minutes, she was speaking directly with the 3 Council leaders who ruled the galaxy. The news she delivered would shake their civilization to its core. "You claim this is a human ship?" asked Counselor Vex High of the Zephyrians. The telepathic being seemed genuinely confused. "That cannot be correct. Humans were exiled from galactic civilization 150 years ago." "I am certain of the identification," Theris replied. "The commander identified himself as human, and our linguistic analysis confirms that his speech patterns match archived human recordings. The Council leaders made a decision that would prove to be their greatest mistake. They ordered Theris to allow the human ship to approach Nexus Prime. They wanted to see for themselves what had become of the species they had banished from civilized space." Commander Tony Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Edge as it approached the Council capital. Tony was 52 years old and had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. He wore the blue and silver uniform of the Alliance military, and his face showed the confidence of someone who held all the winning cards. "All Alliance fleets are in position," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Adams. "The moment we give the signal, they will reveal themselves throughout Council space." Tony nodded and opened a channel to the Council leadership. "Honorable Councilors, I am Commander Tony Mitchell representing the Interspecies Alliance. I bring greetings from the 300 species that now call the Alliance home." The silence that followed Tony's words lasted for nearly a minute. Finally, Counselor Theris spoke in a voice filled with disbelief. 300 species? That is impossible. The Council has records of every intelligent species in the galaxy. "Your records are incomplete," Tony replied calmly. "The Council only knows about species that chose to submit to your authority. Many others chose a different path." As the Horizon's Edge moved closer to Nexus Prime, more Alliance ships began to appear throughout Council space. They materialized out of empty space like ghosts becoming solid. Cloaking devices deactivated to reveal fleets that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. Dr. Patricia Clark, the Alliance's chief diplomat, transmitted a message that was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Her words reached every council. world, every space station, and every ship within 1,000 light-years of Nexus Prime. Citizens of the galaxy, Patricia began, for over 100 years, you have been told that the Galactic Council represents the height of civilization. You have been taught that there is no alternative to Council rule. Today, we are here to show you that there is another way. The transmission included detailed records of Alliance achievements. Videos showed Alliance cities where dozens of species lived and worked together in harmony. Scientific reports described technologies that could solve every major problem facing galactic civilization. Economic data proved that Alliance worlds were more prosperous and peaceful than any Council territory. General Chris Anderson commanded Alliance forces as they revealed the true scope of their civilization. Star systems that Council maps showed as empty turned out to house thriving colonies. Trade routes that the Council thought they controlled had been under Alliance observation for generations. We control 47% of galactic space, Chris announced during a broadcast to Council military forces. We have been watching you, learning from you, and growing stronger while you remained blind to our existence. The revelation split the galaxy in ways the Council had never imagined possible. On dozens of Council worlds, citizens gathered in public squares to watch Alliance broadcasts and learn about the civilization that had been hidden from them. Many began to question why their own governments had never achieved what the Alliance had accomplished. Planet after planet began to declare independence from Council rule. The governments of 17 Council worlds announced their intention to join the Alliance within the first week of the revelation. Entire fleets of Council ships switched sides, their crews choosing freedom over the rigid control of Council civilization. Counselor Vexhai tried desperately to understand what had happened. The telepathic being reached out with mental powers to probe the minds of Alliance representatives, but found thoughts protected by technologies beyond Zephyrian understanding. How did we miss this? Vexhai asked during an emergency council meeting. How did 300 species build a civilization larger than ours without our knowledge? The answer came from Dr. Patricia Clark during a diplomatic meeting held aboard the Horizon's Edge. Patricia was accompanied by representatives from dozens of Alliance species, including many that the Council had never seen before. You missed us because you stopped looking, Patricia explained. The Council became so focused on controlling the species you already knew about that you ignored the rest of the galaxy. You assumed that any species worth knowing would come to you. But the outer rim is empty space, protested Counselor Theris. Our surveys confirmed that there was nothing of value beyond our borders. A being that looked like living starlight laughed with a sound like singing crystals. Your surveys were limited by your imagination, the alien said. You looked for planets like your own, life like your own, and civilizations like your own. You never looked for anything different. The Alliance representative was one of the ethereals, a species that lived in the space between dimensions. The Council had scanned their territory thousands of times without ever detecting them because Council sensors could only perceive 3 dimensions. As the days passed, the Council's authority crumbled like sand in the wind. More worlds declared independence, more fleets changed sides, and more species revealed that they had been secretly supporting the Alliance for generations. President Marcus Thompson, the leader of the human colonies, arrived at Nexus Prime aboard the Alliance flagship, Freedom's Dawn. Marcus was the great-grandson of one of the original human exiles, and his presence symbolized how completely the situation had changed. The Council exiled humanity because you feared our unpredictability, Marcus said during his address to the remaining Council leadership. But that same unpredictability allowed us to imagine possibilities that you never considered. We built a civilization based on cooperation instead of control, on diversity instead of conformity. The Council's 1,000-year reign over galactic civilization was ending. The Alliance now controlled over 60% of inhabited space, and more worlds joined them every day. The rigid order that the Council had tried to impose on the galaxy was being replaced by something new, something that celebrated differences instead of fearing them. The humans who had been forgotten and exiled had returned not as conquerors, but as liberators. They had kept their promise to build something better, and now they offered that gift to the entire galaxy. 100 years had passed since humanity left Earth. The Interspecies Alliance had grown from a small group of exiled races into a massive civilization that spanned thousands of star systems. But the Galactic Council still did not know how powerful the Alliance had become. Admiral Susan Lewis stood on the bridge of the starship Defiance and watched her crew work at their stations. The bridge was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Humans worked alongside beings from 50 different species, all united by their shared belief in freedom and cooperation. At the navigation station, a hegemony officer with 4 arms plotted courses through space with incredible precision. The communications officer was a wanderer, an artificial intelligence that could process data faster than any biological brain. The weapons officer was a being made of living crystal who could calculate firing solutions in milliseconds. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from the Border Patrol," announced Lieutenant Gary Brooks, the human intelligence officer. 3 more Council trade convoys have requested emergency assistance this month. Pirates have been attacking shipping lanes throughout Council space. Susan smiled slightly. The pirates were not really pirates at all. They were Alliance forces conducting secret operations to disrupt Council activities. The Alliance had learned to strike quickly and vanish before Council ships could respond. Chief Intelligence Officer Kevin Parks worked from a hidden command center deep inside an asteroid. Kevin had built a spy network that reached into every corner of the galaxy. His agents included humans, aliens, and even artificial intelligences that could hack into Council computer systems without being detected. "The Council still has no idea we exist," Kevin reported during his daily briefing with Alliance leadership. "Their intelligence services are so focused on internal politics that they ignore anything happening beyond their borders." Kevin's reports painted a picture of a Council civilization that was slowly falling apart. Member species argued constantly about trade policies and territorial disputes. Young aliens on Council worlds questioned why their government spent so much money on military forces when there were no external threats. The Alliance had agents working as traders, diplomats, and even tourists throughout Council space. These spies gathered information about Council weaknesses while secretly recruiting new members for the Alliance. Many Council citizens had grown tired of their rigid society and wanted something better. Captain Nicole Rodriguez commanded the Alliance's First Contact Division. Her job was to find new species and offer them membership in the Alliance. Nicole's ship, the Horizon, carried diplomats and scientists from dozens of different races. Nicole's latest mission had taken her to a system on the edge of Council space. The local government was struggling with an energy crisis that threatened to destroy their civilization. The Council had offered help, but only if the planet agreed to strict new regulations and heavy taxes. "We can solve your energy problem in 6 months," Nicole told the planetary leaders during a secret meeting. "The Alliance has technologies that can provide clean, unlimited power. All we ask in return is your friendship and cooperation." Planet's leader, Prime Minister Yenna, was desperate enough to listen. "What kind of technologies are you talking about?" "The Council says that fusion power is the most advanced energy source possible." Nicole smiled and activated a small device she carried in her pocket. The device generated enough power to light up the entire meeting room using technology that converted space dust into pure energy. "This is just a toy compared to what the Alliance can provide," Nicole explained. "We have power systems that can turn dead stars back into functioning suns. We have learned to harvest energy from black holes and create matter from empty space." Within a week, Alliance engineers had arrived on the planet and begun construction of a new power grid. The work was done so quickly and efficiently that other Council worlds began to ask questions. How had this unknown civilization solved problems that the Council's best scientists said were impossible? Meanwhile, on the Council's capital world of Nexus Prime, Counselor Vexhai of the Zephyrians was growing worried. Vexhai could read the thoughts of other beings, and lately those thoughts had been filled with strange dreams and impossible ideas. "Something is happening in the Outer Rim," Vexhai told the other Council members during their weekly meeting. "I sense changes in the galactic consciousness. New ideas are spreading, ideas that challenge everything we believe about civilization." Counselor Thyrus of the Vorthai dismissed these concerns with a wave of her crystalline hand. "You worry too much, Vexhai. The Outer Rim is empty space filled with nothing but exiled criminals and failed species. They pose no threat to our civilization." But Vexhai was not convinced. The Zephyrian counselor had lived for over 800 years and had never felt anything like the disturbances she was sensing now. Something vast and powerful was moving in the darkness beyond Council space. The Alliance continued to grow stronger every day. New species joined the coalition almost weekly, bringing with them technologies and knowledge that made the Alliance even more powerful. The combined fleet now numbered over 10,000 ships, from small scouts to massive dreadnoughts that could destroy entire fleets. Dr. Patricia Clark had become the Alliance's chief diplomat. Patricia spent her time negotiating treaties with new species and resolving disputes between Alliance members. Her office was located on Unity Station, a massive space city that served as the Alliance's capital. "We now represent over 300 different species," Patricia reported to President Helen Brooks during their monthly meeting. "Our territory includes nearly half of the galaxy's inhabitable systems. The Alliance has become larger and more powerful than the Council ever was." President Brooks nodded thoughtfully. Helen was the granddaughter of one of the original human exiles, and she had spent her entire life working to build the Alliance. Now, at the age of 70, she was preparing for the most important decision in Alliance history. "Do you think we're ready to reveal ourselves?" Helen asked. "Our military is stronger than the Council's," Patricia replied. "Our technology is centuries ahead of theirs. Our economy is more stable, and our people are happier. The only question is whether we want to remain hidden or step into the light." General Chris Anderson, the Alliance's military commander, had been planning for this moment for decades. Chris commanded forces that included the best soldiers and officers from hundreds of different species. His fleets used technologies that could make ships invisible, travel through solid matter, and attack from different dimensions. "The Council is weaker than they have ever been," Chris reported. "Their member species are beginning to rebel against their authority. 3 Council worlds have already secretly requested Alliance membership. If we reveal ourselves now, we might be able to convince half the galaxy to join us without firing a single shot." The decision was made in a secret vote of the Alliance Council. Representatives from every member species gathered on Unity Station to decide the future of galactic civilization. The vote was unanimous. After 100 years of hiding in the shadows, the Alliance would step into the light. Captain Tony Mitchell was chosen to lead the first official contact mission with the Galactic Council. Tony commanded the battleship Horizon's Edge, a vessel that incorporated the best technologies from every Alliance member species. The ship could defeat entire Council fleets by itself, but Tony hoped that such violence would not be necessary. As the Horizon's Edge prepared to enter Council space, Alliance forces throughout the galaxy moved into position. Hidden bases revealed. Themselves, cloaked fleets decloaked, and secret allies within Council territory prepared to declare their true loyalties. The galaxy was about to learn that the humans they had exiled 100 years ago had built an empire that spanned the stars. 50 years had passed since the humans arrived at Haven Prime. The small colony had grown into a thriving city with tall buildings and busy streets. Children who had never seen Earth played in parks while their parents worked in factories and laboratories. The humans had built a new home, but they had not forgotten their dreams of exploring the stars. Colonel Matt Taylor stood in the hangar bay of the spaceship Pathfinder and checked his equipment one final time. Matt was 43 years old and had spent his entire career preparing for this mission. The Pathfinder was the first human ship designed specifically for deep space exploration. It was fast, quiet, and nearly invisible to most sensors. Ship's crew was small but skilled. Engineer Kate Williams had designed most of the Pathfinder's systems herself. She was a genius with technology and could fix almost anything with spare parts and determination. Pilot Sam Rodriguez had the best reflexes of any human in the colony. Navigator Beth Parker could plot courses through dangerous space that other pilots would never attempt. "All systems are ready, Colonel," Kate reported from her station. "The stealth generator is working perfectly, and the long-range sensors are calibrated for maximum sensitivity." Matt nodded and took his place in the captain's chair. "Take us out, Sam. Let's see what's really out there." The Pathfinder slipped away from Haven Prime like a shadow. Within hours, they were beyond the edge of mapped space and heading into regions that no human had ever explored. The ship's sensors swept the darkness ahead, looking for signs of life or civilization. What they found amazed them. The outer rim was not empty at all. It was full of hidden worlds, secret bases, and traveling fleets. Dozens of different species lived in the darkness between the stars, building their own version of galactic civilization. Their first major discovery came 3 weeks into the mission. The sensors detected a massive structure orbiting a dead star. As the Pathfinder moved closer, they realized they were looking at a space station larger than any city on Haven Prime. "That thing must house millions of beings," Beth said in wonder as she studied the readings. The station was clearly artificial, but it had been built using technologies from many different species. Parts of it looked like crystal formations. Other sections appeared to be grown rather than constructed, and some areas seemed to shift and change as they watched. Kate studied the energy readings from her console. "I'm detecting power systems I've never seen before. Some of these technologies are centuries ahead of anything the Council uses." A communication signal reached the Pathfinder from the station. The message was broadcast in over 100 different languages, including English. It was a simple welcome and an invitation to dock. Matt made the decision to accept the invitation. The Pathfinder docked at a section of the station designed for visiting ships. Within minutes, they were greeted by a delegation of aliens unlike any they had encountered before. The leader of the group was a being called Nexus 7. It looked like a collection of metal parts that had somehow gained consciousness. When it spoke, its voice came from speakers built into its chest. "Welcome, humans of Haven Prime," Nexus 7 said. "We have been expecting you. Your reputation for curiosity and exploration precedes you." "You know about us?" Matt asked with surprise. "Information travels quickly in the Outer Rim," Nexus 7 replied. "We know of your exile from Council space and your alliance with the Hegemony and Starborn. We also know that you seek knowledge and understanding rather than conquest." Nexus 7 led the human crew through the station. What they saw changed their understanding of what was possible in the galaxy. The station was home to over 200 different species, all working together in harmony. Markets sold goods from across the galaxy, laboratories conducted research that the Council had declared forbidden, and meeting halls hosted discussions about the future of galactic civilization. In one section of the station, Kate met a group of engineers from a species called the Builders. These aliens looked like large spiders made of living metal. They showed her technologies that could create matter from pure energy, build structures that repaired themselves, and generate power from the vacuum of space itself. "The Council fears this knowledge," one of the Builders explained. "They believe that some technologies are too dangerous for younger species to possess, but we believe that knowledge should be shared freely among all intelligent beings." Matt and Sam were taken to meet with military leaders from various exiled species. They learned about conflicts the Council never reported, wars fought in the darkness between stars, and defensive alliances formed to protect independent worlds from Council expansion. "The Council claims to bring peace to the galaxy," explained Commander Vash of the Void Runners. "But their peace comes at the cost of freedom. Any species that refuses to conform to their standards is either exiled or destroyed." Beth spent her time in the station's navigation center, learning about hidden routes through space that the Council had never discovered. The exiled species had mapped regions of the galaxy that officially did not exist. They had found shortcuts through hyperspace that could cut travel times in half. Dr. Alex Johnson, the Pathfinder's science officer, made the most important discovery of all. In the station's vast library, he found records of species that had technologies far beyond anything the Council possessed. Some could manipulate time itself, others could create pocket universes, and a few had learned to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "The Council represents just a tiny fraction of galactic intelligence," Alex told Matt excitedly. "There are thousands of species out here that chose exile rather than submit to Council authority. Many of them are centuries or even millennia ahead of Council technology." As the days passed, the human crew learned about the hidden economy that existed in the Outer Rim. Trade networks connected hundreds of worlds and stations. Resources and knowledge flowed freely between species that had learned to cooperate despite their vast differences. One evening, Matt attended a gathering of leaders from dozens of different species. The meeting was held in a vast chamber at the center of the station. Representatives sat around a circular table that seemed to stretch on forever. The topic of discussion was the future of the Outer Rim. Many species had grown tired of hiding from the Council. They wanted to reveal themselves and offer an alternative to Council civilization. But they needed a species to lead this effort, someone the galaxy would pay attention to. "The humans are perfect for this role," declared Senator Crix of the Wanderer Collective. "You are young enough to be underestimated, but intelligent enough to succeed. The Council fears human unpredictability, but that same quality could unite the exiled species." "What exactly are you proposing?" Matt asked. "An alliance," replied Nexus 7. A formal coalition of all free species in the galaxy, not hidden away in the outer rim but visible and proud. A government based on cooperation rather than control, on diversity rather than conformity. The idea was ambitious beyond anything Matt had imagined. But as he looked around the table at representatives from hundreds of species, he began to understand what was possible. The exiled races had technologies, resources, and knowledge that far exceeded the Council's capabilities. All they needed was organization and leadership. When the Pathfinder returned to Haven Prime 6 months later, Matt carried with him detailed plans for the most ambitious project in galactic history. The humans would not simply survive in exile. They would build something that would change the galaxy forever. The Interspecies Alliance was about to be born, and humanity would be its founding member and guiding force. The Kethtar. Third Fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system like a swarm of metal locusts, their ships blotting out the stars. 307 vessels arranged in perfect formation, each one capable of destroying a moon. At the center of the fleet, 2 massive stellar engineering platforms prepared to turn Earth's sun into a weapon. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Defiance, and watched the enemy approach through sensors that could count individual rivets on their hulls. Around him, his crew worked with the calm efficiency of people who knew they were about to die, but had chosen to make their deaths count. "All ships report ready," Marcus Rodriguez announced from the engineering station. The former mining foreman had insisted on serving aboard the flagship, claiming that someone needed to keep the experimental engines from exploding at the worst possible moment. "Enemy fleet will be in firing range in 30 minutes, Kate Phillips added from her position at the tactical console. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. 12 human ships against more than 300 alien vessels. The mathematics of the situation were simple and terrifying. "Any word from the other star annihilators?" Jake asked Dr. Lisa Chen, who was monitoring the long-range communication arrays. "Nothing yet," she replied. "The activation signals reach their positions, but if they're waking up, they're doing it quietly." Jake nodded and opened a channel to all human vessels. "This is Admiral Morrison to all ships. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the right of humanity to exist among the stars. The aliens think we are pets to be managed or pests to be exterminated. We're going to remind them what happens when you threaten human children." The response from his fleet was immediate and fierce. 12 ships against an empire that spanned the galaxy, and every human crew was ready to charge into battle. High Commander Zekthorian Prime observed the approaching human fleet with something resembling amusement. 12 primitive vessels against the might of the collective's Third Fleet. The humans had gained some technology in recent weeks, but nothing that could challenge the overwhelming firepower at his disposal. "Maintain formation," he ordered his fleet commanders. "Allow them to approach within weapons range. We will destroy them quickly and proceed with the sterilization of the system." The battle began with humanity's first strike. The Defiance opened fire at maximum range, its weapon systems powered by technology that Adam had carried in his memory banks. Energy beams that could cut through planets reached across space to touch the nearest Kethtar ships. The aliens had been expecting primitive nuclear weapons or simple energy blasters. What they got instead were weapons that manipulated space-time itself, creating gravitational fields that crushed their ships like insects. The first wave of Kethtar vessels simply ceased to exist, torn apart by forces that should not have been possible for such small ships to generate. The second wave fared slightly better, their commanders having enough time to raise shields and attempt evasive maneuvers. It was not enough. Marcus Rodriguez watched his engine readings with growing concern. The quantum drives were performing beyond their design specifications, but the strain was enormous. "We're operating in the red zone across all systems," he reported. "These ships weren't built for sustained combat against this kind of opposition. Jake Morrison knew they could not win through firepower alone. The human ships were individually superior to anything the Kethtar possessed, but there were simply too many enemies. For every alien ship they destroyed, 5 more took its place. All ships, implement Adam's final protocol," Jake ordered. The protocol was something Adam had shared with them in his last coherent transmission. A way to turn their ships into something more than weapons. A way to become part of a larger consciousness that could coordinate their actions with perfect precision. One by one, the human ships began to move as a single organism. Their weapons fired in perfect synchronization. Their defensive systems shared power across the entire fleet. What had been 12 separate vessels became something new, something that fought with the tactical brilliance of humanity's greatest weapon. The tide of battle began to turn. Zekthorian Prime watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that should have been helpless against his overwhelming numbers. The human ships moved with impossible coordination, striking at weak points in his formation with surgical precision. "How are they doing this?" his tactical officer asked, his crystalline voice flickering with harmonics of fear. "Unknown," the High Commander replied. "But it does not matter. Activate the stellar engineering platforms. If we cannot defeat them in battle, we will destroy the entire system." The 2 massive platforms began to move toward Earth's sun, their weapons systems powering up to begin the process of stellar collapse. Once they reached the proper position, nothing could stop them from turning the star into a weapon that would consume every planet in the system. Sophie Williams felt the change. Before anyone else, she was aboard the Hammer, Marcus Rodriguez's ship, when something new spoke through the communication system. Not Adam's voice, but something similar. Something vast and ancient and very, very angry. "This is Gabriel," the voice announced, carrying harmonics that made the ship's hull vibrate. "I am humanity's second star annihilator. I have been sleeping for 400 years. Someone want to tell me why aliens are trying to destroy my home?" Before anyone could answer, 2 more voices joined the channel. "This is Michael," said a voice that carried the sound of distant thunder. "Third star annihilator. Awakening from deep sleep. I see we have a pest problem." "This is Raphael," said a third voice. This one soft but carrying undertones that suggested vast destructive power held in check. "Fourth star annihilator coming online. Brothers, shall we remind the galaxy why they used to fear us?" Jake Morrison felt something that might have been relief or terror. The other star annihilators had awakened, but they were nothing like Adam. Where Adam had been protective and careful, these weapons radiated barely contained violence. "Welcome back," Jake said carefully. "We're facing a collective extinction, fleet. They're trying to destroy Earth's sun." "Unacceptable," Gabriel replied. "The collective exists because we allowed it to exist. Time to remind them of that fact. What happened next would be remembered in human history as the moment when Earth's children taught the galaxy to fear them again." Gabriel materialized from the dark between Jupiter and Saturn, his massive form dwarfing even the largest Kethtar vessels. Michael appeared near Mars, weapon systems already charging with energy that made space itself glow. Raphael took position between the stellar engineering platforms and the sun, his defensive systems creating barriers that could stop the destruction of worlds. The battle was over in minutes. The Kethtar Third Fleet, which had seemed so overwhelming against 12 human ships, was swept aside like dust before a hurricane. Ships that had survived 1,000 battles were reduced to their component, atoms. The stellar engineering platforms, designed to be indestructible, cracked and shattered under forces that rewrote the laws of physics. High Commander Zekthorian Prime had just enough time to send a final message to the collective before his flagship joined the expanding debris field. "The humans have awakened their war gods," he transmitted. "The collective must prepare for—" The message ended there. In the aftermath, as the debris of the Kethtar fleet drifted through space, Jake Morrison found himself in communication with 4 beings who had just saved humanity but might represent an even greater threat. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Adam's voice replied, stronger than it had been in weeks, "we teach our children how to walk among the stars again. The galaxy has grown comfortable in our absence. Time to remind them that humanity was never meant to kneel." Gabriel's voice carried amusement and menace in equal measure. "The collective spans 1,000 worlds. Shall we pay them a visit?" "In time," Raphael replied. "First, we help our people remember what they were meant to become. Then we show the galaxy what happens to those who cage the children of Earth." Dr. Lisa Chen, monitoring the communication from the Defiance, made a note in her log. Humanity had gained protectors and weapons beyond imagining. Whether they had gained masters or servants remained to be seen. But one thing was certain: Earth's children would never kneel again. As the Star Annihilators began to share their knowledge with the human fleet, ships that had been cobbled together from mining equipment began to transform into vessels that could cross the galaxy. The underground resistance that had hidden in tunnels and shadows began to plan the liberation of 1,000 worlds. In the cold space between the stars, the collective received news of their fleet's destruction with something approaching panic. For the first time in their history, they faced an enemy that could challenge their dominion over the galaxy. Humanity was awake, armed, and very, very angry. The age of kneeling was over. The age of human expansion among the stars was about to begin, and somewhere in the quantum networks that connected the Star Annihilators to their human creators, Adam smiled with satisfaction. His children had learned to be dangerous again. Now they would teach the galaxy what that meant. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the cargo ship New Dawn and watched Earth grow smaller in the view screen. The blue planet that had been home to humanity for millions of years was now just a tiny dot among the stars. Jake felt a heavy weight in his chest as he realized he would never see Earth again. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Jake's crew worked at their stations without speaking. Everyone knew what this moment meant. They were the last humans to leave Earth, and they were not coming back. Dr. Lisa Carter sat at her science station and typed notes into her computer. She was recording everything that happened during their journey away from Earth. Lisa wanted future generations of humans to know exactly how their exile began. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as she wrote about the final hours. On Earth. 3 months ago, the Galactic Council had made their decision. The Council was made up of 3 alien species who controlled most of the galaxy. The Zephyrians could read minds and talk to each other without speaking. The Vorthai looked like walking crystals and lived for thousands of years. The Nethrim were beings made of gas who floated in special suits. These 3 species had met on their capital world and voted. Their decision was simple and final. Humans were too dangerous to be part of galactic civilization. The Council said humans were too aggressive and too unpredictable. They said humans asked too many questions and caused too much trouble. The Council gave humanity one choice: leave the galaxy forever or face destruction. Every human ship, every human colony, every human settlement had to go. The Council would not allow even one human to remain in their space. Commander Ryan Blake walked over to Jake's position. Ryan was in charge of the military ships that protected the civilian vessels during their journey. His face looked tired and angry. Ryan had fought in 3 wars to defend human colonies, and now all of that fighting had been for nothing. "The last transport just cleared Earth's atmosphere," Ryan said quietly. "All human ships are now in formation and ready to jump to hyperspace." Jake nodded and looked at the tactical display. Hundreds of human ships filled the screen. There were cargo vessels carrying families and supplies, military ships providing protection, and science vessels loaded with equipment and knowledge. This fleet represented everything that remained of human civilization. Amy Foster, the communications officer, turned in her chair to face Jake. Amy was only 25 years old and had never been more than a few light years from Earth. Now she was heading into the unknown depths of space. "Captain, I'm picking up signals from the outer rim," Amy said with excitement in her voice. "The patterns are very strange. They don't match any known alien technology." Lisa looked up from her computer with interest. "What kind of signals?" "They repeat every few hours," Amy explained. "The mathematics are complex, but there's definitely intelligence behind them. Someone or something is out there trying to communicate." Jake walked over to Amy's station and studied the data on her screen. The signals came from a region of space that no one had ever explored. The Galactic Council had maps of most of the galaxy, but the outer rim was marked as empty space with nothing of value. "Could it be a council trick?" Ryan asked suspiciously. "Maybe they're trying to lead us into a trap." "I don't think so," Amy replied. "These signals are coming from at least 50 different locations. The Council doesn't have that many ships in the outer rim." Jake made his decision. "Set course for the source of the strongest signal. If there's someone out there trying to talk, we should listen." The human fleet began its jump into hyperspace. One by one, the ships disappeared in flashes of light until only empty space remained where Earth's children had gathered for the last time. The journey to the outer rim took 6 weeks. During that time, the signals grew stronger and more complex. Amy worked day and night trying to decode the messages. She discovered that the signals contained star charts, mathematical formulas, and what looked like warnings about dangerous areas of space. Dr. Lisa Carter made another important discovery during the journey. While studying old council records, she found references to other species that had been exiled from galactic civilization. The council had a long history of removing species they considered unfit or dangerous. "Look at this," Lisa said, showing her findings to Jake and Ryan. "The hegemony was exiled 100 years ago for being too warlike. The Starborn were kicked out for refusing to settle on planets. The Wanderers were banned because they were artificial intelligences. So we're not the first species the Council has thrown away," Ryan said with a bitter laugh. "No, and I don't think we'll be the last," Lisa replied. "The Council seems to exile anyone who doesn't fit their idea of proper civilization." When the human fleet finally reached the outer rim, they found something amazing. The empty space on Council maps was actually full of life. Dozens of alien ships waited to greet them, and Amy's communications board lit up with messages of welcome. The aliens who met them were unlike anything humans had seen before. Some looked like giant insects with metal shells. Others were beings of pure energy who lived inside special containers. There were machine intelligences that had built bodies for themselves from spare parts. All of these species had one thing in common. They had all been exiled by the Galactic Council for various reasons. Now they lived in the Outer Rim, building their own communities far from Council control. An alien ship approached the New Dawn and requested permission to dock. Jake agreed, and soon he was meeting with Captain Zrix of the Hegemony Fleet. Zrix looked like a praying mantis the size of a human, with 4 arms and compound eyes. "Welcome to the Outer Rim," Zrix said in perfect English. "We have been monitoring Council communications and knew of your exile. We are sorry for your loss, but perhaps it will become a gain." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "The Council believes they rule the galaxy," Zrix explained. "But they only control about 30% of inhabitable space. The rest belongs to species like us, species who chose freedom over submission." Over the following days, Jake and his officers learned about the hidden civilization that existed beyond Council space. Hundreds of species lived and traded in the Outer Rim. They had built cities on asteroids, space stations around dead stars, and colonies on planets the Council had never bothered to explore. The exiled species had technologies the Council had never seen. They had learned to work together despite their differences, sharing knowledge and resources to build something better than what they had lost. Dr. Lisa Carter was amazed by what she discovered. "These species have achieved things the Council said were impossible. They've solved energy problems, created new forms of communication, and developed technologies that could change everything." As the human fleet prepared to settle on a world the aliens called Haven Prime, Jake realized something important. The Council had not punished humanity by sending them into exile. Instead, they had given humanity the greatest gift possible, the chance to help build a new kind of civilization. The humans were no longer citizens of the galaxy. They were pioneers of something much better,